Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of 1000 Gurus, where we share the stories and wisdom from people of all walks of life. I'm your host, J.R. Yonocruz. So today's episode is a special book highlight episode, which we seem to be having about once per season. So I'll be honest with you, this one kind of scared me in a good way, in a wake up and take notes kind of way, which is ironic because the whole point of this book is about why you just need to sleep more. This is probably one of the books that I reference the most when it comes to health, when I talk to people about health, as I think many of us struggle with getting a good night's sleep, and we all realize, especially as we get older, the effects of good sleep or lack of sleep on our health and our day and our well-being, etc. And I realized, or I found out from this book, that sleep, good quality sleep, is actually the number one foundation for all of our health across the board. More important than nutrition, more important than working out or supplements, etc., is sleep. So today we're talking about Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, a neuroscientist professor at UC Berkeley and the director of Sleep and Neuroimaging Lab. This guy has dedicated his career to studying sleep, and after reading this book, I now understand why. I first heard about this book through the Tim Ferriss podcast, and it has been on my list for a while before I actually read it. I was in a phase of life where I was trying to really refocus on my health, like eating better, working out consistently, mindfulness, and sleep. And so this book hit me at the perfect time. Fair warning, by the end of this episode, you're going to want to put your phone down and just go to bed, or at least try to go to sleep earlier, as you should, because that's kind of the whole point. So let's get into it. Without further ado, please enjoy this book highlight episode of Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. Oh, and a note for the audio-only listeners, I will attach a link in the show notes to a description of the presentation that I'm showing for the YouTube video version. Just a little bit of a sort of PowerPoint notes thing that I had Claude help me build, just for a visual cue to go through this, but totally not necessary. You can just follow along audio-wise. So, what is sleep exactly? Part 1. This book opens up with what I can only describe as a gut punch. Right out the gate, Walker starts off listing all the physical and mental consequences of poor sleep. And I remember thinking, okay, I really need to pay attention. But before we get into the consequences, let's talk about what sleep actually is, because Walker breaks it down in a very interesting way. There are two main forces that determine when you feel sleepy. The first is your circadian rhythm, your body's internal biological clock that runs on approximately a 24-hour cycle. Sunlight resets this clock every day to keep it precisely calibrated. This is also why melatonin isn't the thing that makes you sleep. It's a signal that announces the start of sleep. That's the difference. The second force is sleep pressure, a chemical called adenosine, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, that builds up in your brain the longer you're awake. The more adenosine, the sleepier you feel. You've probably heard about morning people versus night people. Walker explains this is biological, not just a preference. Here's a cool evolutionary reason why both types exist. Having some people stay up late and some wake up early means the community as a whole is sleeping and therefore vulnerable for a shorter period of time. There's an actual survival advantage to having different chronotypes. And here's the thing about caffeine, and I know we all love caffeine. It works by blocking the adenosine receptors. It doesn't remove the actual sleepiness, it just masks it. And the half-life is 5 to 7 hours, so that afternoon coffee is still in your system well into the night. The adenosine keeps building behind it, and when the caffeine wears off, the crash hits all at once. So the stages of sleep. Walker breaks down sleep into distinct stages, and understanding them changed how I think about sleep entirely. So there are 3 states that matter here. Wake state is reception. You're out in the world, experiencing and constantly taking in new information. And REM sleep is reflection. Your brain is sorting, storing, and strengthening those raw ingredients of facts and skills you picked up during the day. REM sleep is integration. Your brain is connecting all of those raw ingredients with each other and with everything you've already learned, building an increasingly accurate model of how the world works. Both types of sleep are essential. Walker talks about something called sleep rebound. When you're sleep deprived and you finally get a full night's rest, your brain will actually prioritize NREM first to recover, then shift towards REM over the following nights. The brain knows what it needs. One thing that stood out to me, REM sleep requires both halves of the brain to be active equally and simultaneously. This is why part of why we sleep so poorly the first night in a new place. One half of the brain stays more alert than the other as a protective instinct. And it's also why alcohol, which is one of the most powerful suppressors of REM sleep, is so damaging, even if it helps you fall asleep faster. Here's something wild that Walker points out. Sleep isn't just a human thing, it appears across the entire animal kingdom. He even makes the case that sleep may be the first state of life on the planet, and that wakefulness emerged from sleep, which I thought was very interesting. Every living creature with a nervous system sleeps in some form. Why your brain needs sleep. Okay, now we get to the part that Walker really hammers home. Not just what sleep is, but what it does for your brain. And this section is written for students, for high achievers, for anyone who has ever told themselves they just sleep less to get more done. Let's start with memory. NREM sleep is a stage that does the heavy lifting here. During NREM, your brain transfers memories from short-term storage in the hippocampus to long-term storage in the neocortex. It's like moving files from a thumb drive to your hard drive. And here's the practical implication. Even a short nap contains enough NREM sleep that can consolidate memories and free up space in your short-term memory cache. Walker's line here is one I keep coming back to. Practice plus sleep makes perfect, not just practice. Practice then sleep. He even notes that elite athletes like Usain Bolt have been known to nap hours before breaking world records. Sleep is part of the performance, not just the recovery from it. The recycle rate. Here's the statistic that probably hit me the hardest in the entire book. The recycle rate of a human being is around 16 hours. After 16 hours of being awake, your brain starts to fail. And after just 10 days of only getting 7 hours of sleep per night, not even all-nighters, just slightly less than 8, the brain performs as poorly as if it had been awake for 24 hours straight. And the kicker, when you're sleep deprived, your brain cannot accurately sense how sleep deprived it is. You feel fine, yet you're functioning, but you're not. Sleep and emotional health. Beyond cognition, sleep deprivation significantly increases emotional reactivity. The fight or flight areas of the brain, specifically the amygdala, becomes hyperreactive when you haven't slept. Studies have also identified links between sleep disruption and depression and mood disorders in adolescence. And for people with bipolar disorder, a lack of sleep can actually trigger a manic or depressive episode. Sleep deprivation is also linked to dementia. During NREM sleep, the brain clears the harmful amyloid deposits tied to Alzheimer's. The short sleep raises cancer risk. I love this quote Walker references, "The best bridge between despair and hope is a good night's sleep." E. Joseph Kosman. Walker's framing of all this is unforgettable. He puts it plainly. Wakefulness is low-level brain damage. Sleep is neurological sanitation. Every night you sleep is your brain running a deep clean on itself. Every night you don't is another night the buildup goes unchecked. Sleep and your body. Part 4, what sleep does for your body. Everything we just covered was just about the brain. Now let's talk about the body. Short sleep is a proven recipe for weight gain. Here's the chain reaction. Insufficient sleep increases hunger hormones, compromises impulse control, increases consumption of high-calorie foods, decreases feelings of satisfaction after eating, and prevents effective weight loss even when dieting. You can't out-diet or out-exercise chronic sleep deprivation. Less sleep also leads to lower sperm count, lower testosterone, and lower libido. For women, it disrupts menstrual cycles and reduces fertility. And yes, Walker confirms that quote-unquote beauty sleep is a real thing. Physical attractiveness is measurably decreased by lack of sleep. And then there's the immune system. Reduced sleep increases your risk of getting various forms of cancer. Lack of sleep triggers a sustained inflammatory response in the body, a chronic stress signal that affects every system over time. Walker makes a bold claim about all of this, and I think it's earned. Sleep is not a pillar of health. It is the foundation on which the pillars of nutrition and exercise sit. That reframing matters. We talk about diet and exercise as the two big levers of physical health, but Walker's argument is that without consistent sleep, neither of those levers work properly. Part 5, Dreams and the Sleeping Mind. I want to spend a moment on dreams because Walker's take on REM sleep and dreaming is genuinely fascinating. One function of REM sleep is what Walker calls overnight therapy for emotionally traumatic events. While you sleep, your brain revisits emotionally charged memories but strips away the sharp emotional edges. You wake up with the memory intact but less raw. REM sleep also helps recalibrate your ability to accurately read other people's emotions through facial expressions. Another function of REM sleep is creativity and problem solving. Your dreaming brain isn't just replaying your day, it's pulling together distant, unrelated items and making unexpected connections. Sleep on it isn't just a saying. Walker argues that the science backs it up entirely. Part 6, what's getting in the way? So why aren't we sleeping? Walker identifies 5 key modern factors. Constant electric and LED light. Our brains weren't designed for this much artificial light. Constant temperature. Your core body temperature needs to drop a few degrees to fall asleep, and always on climate control disrupts that. Caffeine, as we talked about, it blocks the sleepiness signal without removing it. Alcohol. It may help you fall asleep, but it suppresses the REM sleep your brain needs most. A legacy of punching time cards, the cultural glorification of busyness and productivity over rest. One I hadn't thought about before, your alarm clock. Walker describes the snooze function as inflicting cardiovascular assault, a spike in blood pressure, and a fight or flight response in your nervous system every single morning. The fix, go to bed earlier so you don't need the alarm as much. I think about this, as we, in college especially, or when we're trying to wake up and we set 1,000,000 alarms, that's basically just assaulting your cardiovascular and your nervous system every morning, which floods your body with cortisol. And so I thought about that. I just set one alarm, and if that doesn't do it, then that means I need to sleep earlier and wake up more naturally, and in some sense, my body kind of wakes me up before my alarm. But I always think about that every time I wake up to an alarm, it's basically a bad way for my body to wake up. Part 7, the 12 tips for better sleep. So Walker wraps up the book with 12 practical tips for healthy sleep, and I want to run through them because they're actionable and immediately useful. Number 1, stick to a consistent sleep schedule. Same wake up and bedtime every day, including weekends. Number 2, exercise is great, but not too late. 30 minutes of daily exercise is ideal, but avoid it within 2 to 3 hours of bedtime. Number 3, avoid caffeine and nicotine. Number 4, avoid alcohol before bed. It may help you fall asleep, but it destroys your sleep quality. I always joke around and tell this to my friends. If you're going to drink either in the morning or afternoon so that it's clear of your system before you go to bed. Number 5, avoid large meals and beverages late at night. Number 6, if possible, avoid medications that delay or disrupt sleep. Number 7, don't nap after 3 p.m. Number 8, relax before bed. Don't overschedule yourself in the evening hours. Number 9, take a hot bath before bed. Counterintuitively, this cools your body because heat disperses from your skin after the bath, and cooling down is what triggers sleep. Number 10, dark, cool, gadget-free bedroom. Number 11, get natural sunlight for at least 30 minutes each day. Try to wake up with the sun and use bright light in the morning to reset your clock. Number 12, don't lie in bed awake. If you can't sleep, get up and do a relaxing activity elsewhere until you feel sleepy. Limit non-sleep time in your bed. Closing thoughts. Here's what I really appreciated about the book. It's relevant to everyone. We all know sleep is important, but Walker actually explains why at a granular scientific level. And the case he makes is airtight. The scary part about this book isn't just the list of health risks. It's the realization that most of us have been chronically undersleeping for years, myself included, and our brains were too impaired to notice how impaired they were. Since reading this, I've made a genuine effort to prioritize my own sleep schedule, build a wind-down routine early in the evening, and be more intentional about the things that interfere with sleep. The late caffeine, the phone in bed, the inconsistent schedule. I have to do a little bit better with that caffeine part. Sometimes I can't resist getting a Vietnamese iced coffee later in the afternoon, like 4 or 5 p.m., but I almost always regret it, so it's a work in progress. And my one takeaway, it's simple, and it's the foundation of everything that Walker argues. Consistently get 8 hours of sleep every night. It's not a hack, it's not a supplement, not a trick. 8 hours consistently every night. So put the phone down, set a bedtime, and give your brain the neurological sanitation it needs. All right, and that is it. That is the book highlight for Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. This is consistently one of the most recommended books that I give in terms of health, like I mentioned in the beginning, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you want to read my full notes on this book, you can find them at my blog book summary website, marloyonocruz.com, which I'll link also in the description. I've got a detailed chapter-by-chapter notes along with my personal takeaways and a link to the audiobook on Audible if you want to check it out for yourself. And that's a wrap on this book highlight episode of 1000 Gurus. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, and leave us 5 stars on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. Reminder to be kind to other people, especially yourself. And remember that you can always learn something from someone if you take the time to listen. So thank you guys for being here.